Good morning. I appreciate the student that told me that there was no sound on this video. I did have a few mic problems, but I didn't think it affected this particular recording. It was in the computer lab where I was using the instructor machine, but anyway, to re-record this, security and personnel. And I have graded the assignments for this chapter, and a lot of you are really looked at the CompTIA security certification. And what I wanted to say was we're required to cover those certifications, but in reality, you're in college, so you're not gonna attempt any certifications generally in college. When you get a job, then it's between you and your employer what certifications that you take, and generally in interest there is compensation for that. So just we have to cover them, and I think looking at all the different classes that you're going to have, that you're going to see that there's thousands of those certifications, and some of them are based on your experience. What I do like is that now they're offering continuing education credits for those, so that if you get so many, like you go to webinars or seminars and you get so many credits, then you don't have to retake it. Those are aimed at that you get the new things that come out. In addition to that certification. Engineers have to take 2 certification exams, and I know that because I have a son-in-law that's an engineer. But once you take those, then you don't have to do it again. Computers is not like that, however, in that the content changes all the time. So let's take a look at Chapter 11, where and how information security should be positioned in the organization, the issues and concerns related to staffing, the credentials of information security professionals. And I promise you, I looked, and I believe it was Indeed, but I'm not positive about that. I looked one day last week, and I keyed in entry-level security for the job. There was 75 entry-level security jobs in the state of Alabama. So what that what that said was that a 2-year degree will get you that job. So they're trying to train people, bringing them in as entry level right out of college, because security is so important. Okay, then the employees' policies and practices to support the security efforts, the precautions when you're using contract workers. And when I recorded this, of course, my mind went straight to Snowden. You know, he was a contract worker that stole all of those like 12,000 documents from NSA. Me and a couple of students were talking one day in class, and we said that the National Security Agency is good about putting out materials, but they are about 20 years behind in actually implementing those security things into their systems. So monkey see, monkey do, I guess. Requirements, the need for separation of duties. Now, we've just learned in our database classes that even the DBAs with the highest level authority in those databases, there's an audit check on them, because a lot of times it's the people that are actually in the organization that create the threat. Excuse me. And then the privacy of personnel data. Do you feel like you have any privacy in your organization? When implementing the security, human resources, positioning and naming, staffing, impact on the information security on every IT function, and integrating the security concepts into all the management practices of the company. Employees feel threatened when information security is being created or enhanced. We feel a little bit threatened. Do you know there's been lots of lawsuits over the years? An employee sued her employer because they were reading her emails. The court ruled that you're at work, that employer has every right to read your emails. So you just have to be careful. I've stated more than once, here at Sneed, there's someone that's all he does is his monitor shows all the other monitors on campus. I hate to say it, but people who work here have abused computer privileges doing their shopping, watching movies, things like that when they're supposed to be at work. It happens. The security function is in the IT function, the security office, the administrative office, insurance and risk management, the legal department. So information security is a balance, right, between all those things. Now, can I just do one thing that happened on the news this morning, and I'll have to Google it, so I may pause this. I like to look at current events when we're doing this, and I am going to go try to hurry because I've got a class at 11. But I did want to re-record this because a lot of you are doing your Chapter 11 assignments right now. Let's see, guns stolen. Where were those stolen from? Was it the FBI? I may have to look. Yeah, at this government Army facility in Pennsylvania. So that was, they didn't think it was espionage or terrorism. When I was coming to work this morning, I heard about that. You know, we talk about information security, but this is physical security. So we may want to look and see, was that from within? You know, and do they know how many were actually taken? So in this class, we're seeing things about security that just happens all the time. Personnel, select your personnel on several criteria. There's got to be checks and balances. That's the main thing, that there's got to be checks and balances. The chancellor is what he's called, that oversees all the community colleges in the state, and there's 26 of them. They're trying to consolidate them now so that there won't be so many. But there's 26 of them. For years, he stole money. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know why? Because there was nobody checks and balances on him. He had 4 different homes. His main home was in Opelika because that's where he came from, that community college down there, Southern Union. He had a home in the mountains. He had a home on the beach. And it was paid for by our hard-earned dollars. So checks and balances, even the top-level people need checks and balances. We just saw that, a period of high demand. So take a look at the occupational handbook. It'll show you the middle salary, the average salary in this field, how many expected entry-level positions there are, and they are willing to take an associate degree. You do any experience that you can get while you're here at Sneed, whether it's the intern program or whatever it is, you need to try to get any experience that you can in the field. So network and computer systems administrators, what kind of degree they want, how fast it's growing. Computer and information systems. Now, this is database management, and do you see the difference? It's because databases are really important, right? Every bill you pay, everything that you do at the courthouse, you know, your bank, all of them use information systems and the security of that. That's what I was just saying. I sent you an email about CIS 287. And that is a SQL Server database class. But in that class, you'll see that there is security at the operating system level in the secure socket layer and Kerberos, but there's also security then at the server level for the database. There's security at the table level. There's security at every individual field. So this is going to keep growing, as well as information securities. But when you see this term, CIS, it means, generally speaking, it's data. That's what it is, and that's what databases are. The requirements, the skills and qualifications, upper management does do the budgets, but they, I believe now are beginning to see that they need to put more into information security. Um, you can't just know one thing in computers. And I say that even in programming classes and web development. You really do have to understand how it all fits together. There's a lot of different jobs that involve computers and information security. um, it is usually a management problem and a technical problem. Well, it is management, but it is also technical in understanding how it works, understanding how the network works and all that. Now, do you see strong communication and writing skills? Every single resume or job posting usually will say that you've got to have strong oral and written communications. When I see uncapitalized I's and I see bad grammar, it's just a bad habit to get into, because when you go to work, you can't use those kind of writing skills. It's very important. Threats. What are the threats facing an organization and how do they become attacks? How do you protect the organization's assets for information security attacks? And what we've learned in this classes is that hackers generally roam around that data for a long time before they're ever found out about. And it's not just one company. It's not just large companies. It's a lot of different companies. So I think you're going into a great field if you're going into information security at this time. It's law enforcement and military and technical security applications and processes. They're saying that security has two career paths. I'm not sure I would want to be in law enforcement, but that's a calling, I believe, a higher calling. If you think you want to be in law enforcement, I do believe that it's a wonderful job. It's rewarding, but it's also very hazardous. Tailor your degrees. That's what I was trying to say, that even if you're not going to be in the database track, the database track and the security track go hand in hand. This class has actually helped me in the database track because I feel like I've learned so much in this class. We did Kerbotos in the databases, but this class gave me a look at even further. And the next 10 years, these jobs are just going to be growing more and more. So we have the military, law enforcement, technical information, then information security graduates, so showing you that it is a really good path. This shows you the source that they got these photos from. That's what it's for, to give their copyright information. The security positions. Now, the very last assignment is to look at jobs themselves. Look at the skills that they want you to have, and all of that that's listed there. It will show you what their operating systems are using. You know how they have their network set up and all that kind of stuff. They're taking a look at this book, Information Security Roles and Responsibilities Made Easy, model job descriptions. I'm sure that's being used in the workplace now. I'm sorry you're hearing those door slams. I'm in a new office, and it's right between two labs, and the doors on both of those labs are really loud when they shut. I look at the chief security officer and what happens in the database area that happens in this area. In a small company, this guy's going to have all these hats. I'm sorry, he's just going to do the whole thing. That's the way it is. And at Sneed, we have one database administrator. I mean, he's responsible for it. A lot of people use that database, but we have one database administrator. The chief information officer, and a look at what they do, recruiting and hiring. And there again, we have one chief security officer here at Sneed. He spends a lot of his time driving around on campus making sure everything's okay. He's a really good guy. He does have people that work for him, part-time people that work for him. The manager, day-to-day operations, these are giving the skills. Now, you could use this when you do the assignment for Chapter 12. You can use this to see what this book says are the general job descriptions for these different positions. And it does. I say this over and over, but what we do at the college level is try to provide you a foundation. And the computer science technology degree has no matter what your track is, you have to take web development, you have to take hardware and software support, a couple of programming classes, a database class, so you'll have that foundation to build your expertise on, because it all does work together. There you go. There's your industry recognized certifications. And I do want to state that it is between you and your employer. I would not recommend any college student just to go out and start getting certifications. Just secure that job first, secure your education, secure that job. And one of the things I would say would be on the interviews are you willing to become certified? And of course, that's when you tell them your knowledge of the certifications and what happens. So a whole list of them, and I suggested you do the comp TIA security. One student, and I hope you're wrong, but one student said they heard that comp was making it impossible to pass the test so that you have to keep taking them. Now, I want to tell you something. Every certification exam that I have ever taken is very hard, especially Oracle. I mean, hard. I was in a training session at New Horizons in Birmingham several years ago, and there was a network administrator that had been doing that job for 15 years, and he stated in class that he didn't agree with the answers on all the questions. He barely passed that test because they'll give you 2 right answers and you have to choose the best right answer. Well, he didn't agree with them all the time because he had done it in practice. He didn't agree. So there are disadvantages to those certifications as well. One of the things that you will ask if you are asking in an interview is, does the employer compensate for the prices for those exams? Do they compensate with salary once you have that certification? Those kinds of things. You just want to make yourself knowledgeable about the certifications in general. And I found a link the other day that lists all of the industry certifications, and that covers the whole gamut. The Microsoft Office suite, web development certifications, security certifications, Cisco there's certifications in every single thing, and nobody can have them all, but it depends on the job that you do, which one you would concentrate on. Several of you decided to check out that one. A lot of people do go ahead and do comp TIAs because it's an industry leader. They have other certifications. They have take them apart and put them together, certifications. And that would give you a look. Now, another thing is that you would Google or try to take practice certifications. Let me see. Free practice so in my 2 database classes this semester, we are finishing the semester up with taking some free exams. So you saw that I put in there free ones. Now there's all kind of companies out here that want to charge you for even taking free exams. If you go to Books A Million or Barnes & Noble, you'll find books that you can buy for $60 or so that include a CD for practice exams. So one of the things that you'll want to do before you take any certification is get some practice ones, and some of them are better than others. I tried the SQL Server, some practice ones the other day, and they were fairly easy. And then I tried some Oracle ones that were very, very, very hard. So how they work: use the resources at your disposal before you take any of those certifications. There's all kinds of help out there to take them. So certified computer examiner, all of them. They can be expensive, as high as $1,000 a piece, as low as $100 a piece, depends on the certifications. You do need to review. You need to buy books on them. You need to take practice ones, and that's what all that. It's saying what I just have said, showing you that you can get other people to help you. Make sure you use your work experience. There are webinars and all kinds of training media out there for you. Business before technology, solutions that enhance each other. The goal is protection for you, for the people that work there, and your data. Be heard and not seen. We see that a lot, that we want to make that seamless so that the average user does not even know it's there. This is one thing: speak to users, not at them, that I've always tried to do in my class. I don't put myself above any student. I try my best to help students in any way I can. That's one reason I have done the internships. I began that just a year after I started here, and honestly, I have aided, and I'm not bragging, I'm just stating that. I've aided a lot of students in getting a job in using the internship program. You do realize that if you're in computers, you're going to be a lifelong student. It's just the way it is. It changes all the time. New inventions, new hardware, new software, new everything. You're going to be a lifelong student if you're in computers. The employee policies and practices. A lot of times there are policies, and they're posted. The SNEED's acceptable use, computer acceptable use policy is what it's called. It's posted on all the labs. Your company will have a policy on how it handles information security. Your bank has a policy, and they'll share it with you. All those kinds of things as you go. Human resources. This is handled differently at different places. It's just at the community college level, you have to have a complete packet. If I teach WKO, and WKO 101 is offered only in the spring, and every tech graduate has to take it, it teaches you how to build a resume, how to conduct an interview. In that, I try to show you that, yes, you do have to have their own application, even though it's on your resume. You have your resume, you have a cover letter, and all of those things have to be error-free. So then when you interview, there is a panel of 6 people asking you questions. Some companies don't do it that extensive. Maybe there's 2 or 3 people asking you. Maybe there's a phone interview. Maybe there's other interviews. So job descriptions, that's why I do it in every class I teach, is because you learn information with those job descriptions. And I realize I've had students, and in fact my own kids, I don't have to look for a job right now, I'm going to school. But if you look while you're going to school, you're going to get a better job, I promise. That's just the way it is. The interviews. Be careful what you say in interviews. Go into your interviews understanding the company, do research on the company. We had the last interview that I was a part of. It asked a question: how do you handle disputes? 2 out of the 3 people that were being interviewed said, generally it's not a problem, but this is what I would do if it were. One person said, oh, have disputes all the time, just went on and on about how bad it was. That person didn't get the job. Just be very careful about how you phrase what you do. Don't be negative on yourself. If you don't know anything, something that they ask you, say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Don't ever say anything negative about yourself. If it is negative, put it in a positive light. Certifications, the policy, background checks. Um, there is a movie that is called, and it was an 80s movie, I think, because my kids watched it, Don't Tell Mother the Babysitter's Dead. And in that movie, this girl built herself a resume that did not exist. She lied like everything. They didn't check her, and they put her to work. But I promise you, most companies do check that. And, if you get a job and then they check later and they found out you lied, then that's all it wrote. So be really careful about what you say, what you put on your resume. Make sure on your resume that you do have the dates of employment starting most recent first and go back. And the same with your education. You can't spend too much time on that resume making sure it's perfect. The contracts, and a lot of people do contract employment, and I have companies call me all the time. I got really mad at one this semester. This woman called me. She needed some students that she would pay to create web pages. Well, I sent 2 highly qualified students to her, and she never got back. So I think what she said she is going to plan to do is, come spring, she's going to ask me to have a student intern so she won't have to pay him. I'm not going to do business with that woman because I gave her what she wanted. The students took the time and the effort to reply to her, and then she didn't respond, and I don't like that at all. So when I do contracts, I connect the student and the employer, and then I get out of it. What you make, how long the contract is, what you do is totally between you and the employer. New hire orientations, generally there are. When you hire in at Sneed, you're going to spend at least half a day going through learning how Sneed works and all that kind of stuff. On the job security training, we need more of that here at Sneed. I think the high schools do really good about tornado watches, and I hope they're putting into place some kind of threats. There's been so many people killed, and so I hope they're trying to do disaster kind of training at the high schools. We closed down a day. I'm really sad about that. We closed down a day because of a death threat, and we have yet to hear any information about that threat. And I've contacted 2 people on this campus to give me a current status of that threat, and they can't tell me anything. So I'm really disappointed in that. Evaluate the performance. You get evaluated in an organization a lot more than you want to be sometimes. When an employee leaves an organization. Now, I was just talking to a colleague the other day. She teaches part-time, and the person tried to give her a set of keys to the building, and she said, I do not want a set of keys. I don't want to, if anything happens in that building, I'm not going to be liable. And I can understand that. We have one guy here that works in our maintenance that's responsible for all the keys. And when you get a new key to a building, then you have to sign that you got it and you have to bring it back. You bring the key itself back. So they do some things like that. Information disclosure agreements. We have one. We had one when I worked with NASA and when I worked with the Army Missile Command. Up to a given number of years, you could not talk about the job you did or what you did when you were there. Turn in your equipment when you leave, audits, exit interviews, changing the locks. Terminations is when it gets hairy, right? When somebody is terminated, they get mad. That's what, I don't know what actually prompted Snowden to steal all those documents. I don't think he was mad. I think he did it because he could. He saw how bad their security was at NSA, and he decided to make an example of them. I really believe that. He wants to come back to the United States, but he knows he's going to be prosecuted when he does. So termination. friendly departures, resignation, retirement, promotion, relocation, termination again. Everything's inventoried. System logs. To see if there's been a breach of policy. I'm just going to go on over that. None of us are going to do anything like that, I hope. If there's a screening, security considerations for everyone that comes. We have a lot of adjunct or part-time instructors here. We have temporary employees. We have consultants. We have other workers. All of those people have the chance to get information about the company. So you need to make sure that that what they do while they're there is monitored. Temporary contract, and there again, contract people are usually there just for a particular length of time, even though they may have access to all of the company's sensitive data. So be careful if they're not supposed to take their own copies and that kind of thing. Consultants are much the same way. Business partners, they need to know some things, but do they need to know everything? There is ways that we can collaborate using the cloud and using documents where everybody can have access to do what they need to do. It's a lot easier now than it used to be since we do have the cloud storage. Separation of duties. Have checks and balances, all of that kind of stuff. Make sure that there's nobody that is not overseen. Presidents usually aren't, and that's really sad because presidents and people of the highest authority are sometimes the ones who does the most damage. Two persons, separation of duties, checks and balances on each other, job rotations where you go. And the automobile industry is really good at this. We toured one of the auto companies here in Albertville that builds seats for Honda, I believe. And their employees rotate on all the jobs after it so that they learn all of the jobs so that they can fill in if they need to. Make sure that they don't take any proprietary data with them and go join a competitor. Least privilege, and that's what we do with databases. We give the users of that database the amount of privileges they need to do their job and no more. That's the way it works. The sensitive data. Now, you know that teachers here at Sneed can look up what classes you've taken. We can look up your address. We can look up all that stuff so that we can advise you on what classes to take. But you do realize that none of us, I believe, none of us would jeopardize our jobs by doing anything with your data. I've worked for a community college for 20 years, and I have never done anything that I should not have done with your sensitive data. Okay, so that's chapter 12 and chapter 11, and I'm sorry you couldn't hear that video. I hope this will get us back on track, and I will redo chapter 12 this afternoon as soon as I get out of class. Have a great day.